Hey guys, Thrasher here. We have a ton of sparking characters in Dragon Ball Legends, but where do they all sit? Let's talk about my tier list right now. Okay, so there are far too many sparking characters in the game for me to give you a full reasoning on why every single one of these characters is in their specific tier. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to go through each specific tier. I'm going to explain to you what the tier means, why characters are in that tier, and also I want to mention that outside of the very top tier, these units are in no specific order. So as we go through these different tiers, just note that most of these units are fairly comparable within the tier, and then when we get to the top tier, they will be ordered, and I will give an explanation for each unit within that top tier one by one. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first one is the C tier. These units, as you can see here, we have green Kura and we have the yellow Pycon. They have no real use at the moment. They are units that don't have any true utility value on any reasonably good teams. They don't fit into any reasonably good teams. There's no reason to use them. If you have any other sparking units, you will want to use those instead. So let's go ahead and jump to the next tier, the B tier. Now these are units that have some type of utility, or there are some situational uses where they are okay to choose, but normally they are not good units to use, and overall they're going to lose almost all matchups unless they have type advantage. One notable unit here that a lot of people may think should sit in the C tier instead of the B tier is Captain Ginyu. The reason I have Captain Ginyu in the B tier, there's two reasons. One, he brings a green card to battle, which he is the only sparking unit to really do that right now, which means he does have some utility value if for whatever reason you extremely value green cards on your team, and he is the leader of a Ginyu Force team if you wanted to run Ginyu Force. But those are really the only two saving graces that he has. Overall, his stats are pretty bad. Now, A tier units are units that are good fillers if you don't have someone in the top two tiers, either the Z tier or the S tier, and you need to throw them in there. These units can do some damage, they can take some damage, they have some type of support ability. They're not units that I would prefer to bring to a team, but if I need to fill a third slot, I will throw them in there. As you can see here, we have Broly and Heart Virus Goku that are in the A tier. A lot of people considered them to be amazing units just a couple weeks ago. They've both fallen off considerably, especially Broly, who I think has been extremely overrated by the community, at least for the last few weeks. And I think we'll continue to see those units fall. So let's go ahead into the S tier. S tier units are extremely strong units that win most neutral matchups. They have some type of utility outside of just their general ability to do some damage. A good example of this is Super Saiyan Vegeta. While he doesn't do the most damage in the game, his stats aren't amazing, he does have a ton of key regen, so if you know how to do sidestep tech, you can actually string extremely long combos and really build up a lot of damage against your opponent. Okay, next up is the Z tier. These are the units that are actually in order. I'm going to start with the 5th strongest character in the game and we'll move up to first. I will give a general explanation of why each of these units are where they are. One of the things to note about this is while the other tiers, they are randomly ordered because the units are so small in their variations of power that any one of them can win. The differences in power between these units are so great that they will definitely win their neutral matchups, but in most cases these units, at least the top 3, will win a lot of type disadvantage matchups as well, unless they're against another Z tier unit. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. My number 5 is Super Vegeta. He is an extremely powerful unit. In some situational cases, he has the highest damage potential in the game. If you can keep him out for 15 timer counts, he will absolutely blow anyone away. The real issue there is it's hard to keep someone out for 15 timer counts. It doesn't sound like it's that long, but as you're playing, you'll realize it feels like an eternity. So that's his big issue, but he does have a very, very large health pool, and he also has some very quality equipment items that you can throw on him. And number 4 is Red Perfect Form Cell. Now, while Super Vegeta has the highest damage potential in the game, Cell has the highest non-situational damage. So in any general situation, on average, this Cell is going to have the highest damage potential in the game out of all the units. His stat spread is absolutely enormous. His offensive stats are absolutely ridiculous, and you would think that they would try to balance that out by making him extremely Glass Cannon-esque, where he doesn't have a lot of defense stats, but his defense stats are actually very good, and his key restore speed is above average. Beyond that, he has the Android tag, and he's a red unit, so there's a ton of characters in the game that have Z abilities that buff red units and androids, so there's a lot of teams he can work on and get tons and tons of hybrid buff. So he can be a very, very valuable damage dealer on an android team, on a red team. He is an all-around great unit right now. 2 more huge things to mention. He has tons of buffs against Super Saiyans, which is a large portion of the meta right now, and the other thing is his ultimate attack has the ability to feint opponents, which is also extremely powerful. Okay, so number 3 is Android 17. He has an extremely high damage potential. I believe he's 3rd or 4th in the game right now. His blast attack will rip through most opponents unless they have type advantage. He has his barrier ability, which essentially gives him a second vanishing step outside of trying to stop rising rushes. He also has the cover change reduced damage ability, which allows him to tank for your team, and he just has overall amazing defensive stats. So he is a high damage potential unit with good defensive stats, which can tank for your team, which makes him just an all-around extremely powerful unit. Okay, number 2, Bardock. Bardock is a monster. He has the highest health pool in the game. He has the ability to lock units in with his main ability so they can't switch out while he's trying to do his combos. He can mow opponents down faster than almost any other unit in the game. He's one of the few damage dealing units who actually brings 2 cards to battle that fit with his damage dealing kit, which makes his real world damage potential a lot higher than some other units who look good on paper but don't perform as well because they don't bring 2 blast if they need blast cards or 2 strike if they need strike cards, and so on. One more thing to mention before we go on to the first unit is I do want to say that the first and second unit on this list, while they're in the Z tier with these other 3 units, they probably should be in their own tier, because in most cases, if you have one of these top 2 units and your opponent doesn't have one of these top 2 units, you're at an extreme advantage. Whereas the 3rd, 4th, and 5th ranked units, if you have one of those and your opponent doesn't have one of those, they still have a chance. Okay, so number 1 is Green Super Saiyan Goku. He's broken, it's not even close. He essentially has the ability to stop your opponent's Rising Rush twice. I don't think I've ever seen anyone in a battle against me get Rising Rush 3 times. So if you're using this unit properly, your opponent will not get to Rising Rush you. Beyond that, his special move is a secondary Vanishing Step. So he can Vanishing Step you, and then if he has his special move, he can Vanishing Step you again. Beyond that, he has amazing Ki Restore and he has reasonable damage stats. So if you put the proper equipment on him and you use his green card, which also helps his ki regen, then you use the sidestep tech, you can essentially keep sidestepping as long as you're drawing cards. By the time you run out of cards to draw and your opponent is about to attack you again, assuming you haven't messed the combo up, your Vanishing Step is going to be back up. This unit can essentially wipe opponents without getting hit. This is the point where we start having to ask ourselves, should sidestep still be in the game? I don't have an issue with sidestep as long as it puts you in a situation where both opponents have the same level playing field, but we're now at a point where you have to bring this unit because of sidestep. This is probably the first unit that I've seen in the game that I'm fairly certain will not fall off for a very long time, because the things that make him extremely powerful are things that scale. Stopping Rising Rush, stopping opponents' extremely long combos. This card right here is the reason that Heart Virus Goku cannot be in the S tier. Because Heart Virus Goku has to get off long combos in order to be effective in the first 20 counts, this unit can stop that, and he can stop it twice. That essentially nullifies that unit completely. He's no longer part of the meta because of this guy. In fact, this unit is so powerful that if you don't have Bardock to stop his cover rescue so that you use Bardock's main ability and you can't cover rescue, this unit is probably going to wipe your team, because you will not be able to Rising Rush, he will Rising Rush you, and he will get off extremely long combos. So that's why I said if you don't have the first or second character in this list, you're in a lot of trouble right now. I hope they do bring out more units, just because this one is so... It's funny how powerful this unit is. I have to laugh at the distance between the first and second unit and every other character in the game. It's insane. And that's how the tier list stacks up for now. If you guys have anything that you want to add, you don't think this tier list is right, you want to move some guys around, throw it down in the comments. We'll all talk about it. And if you like this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.